Love stories have pretty much become staples across all works of fiction. Video games are no exception in this regard. While the average video game romance still may not be on the same level as some of those depicted in film and books, they've certainly come a long way over the years from the whole damsel in distress and hero saving the princess trope. Gone are the days of flimsy one-dimensional romances where the hero wins the lady's affection only because he rescued her from a perilous situation. I mean, yeah, that's really nice and cool of him, but it's not like girls are out here in real life falling in love with every police officer or firefighter who happens to help them with a tough time. Instead, these days, romances in video games tend to be more fleshed out and actually more relatable to the average person, instead of a girl only liking you because you swing a sword well and just killed a dragon. Considering the role-playing genre has a stronger emphasis on storytelling than most other video games, it should come as no surprise that the love stories often depicted in these are better than most. With that said, the earlier Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy titles were pretty basic in this regard though, so it wouldn't be until the Super Nintendo era, and especially the PlayStation, that they would start getting developed a lot more. The first type of real romance we ever got in the Final Fantasy series would come through Cecil and Rosa in Final Fantasy IV. It wasn't necessarily the most fleshed out relationship, but it was a departure from previous games and gave the players something else to emotionally care about other than just saving the world. Final Fantasy VI would bring us romance through Locke and Celeste, which did provide a little more substance. Around this time, romance in other JRPGs were often pretty light. Chrono Trigger gave us some touching moments through Chrono and Marl, but considering Chrono as a silent protagonist, there was only so much that could be done to flesh that out. Lufia 2 is another one that comes to mind with light romance. It's never a huge factor, but it's there in small doses throughout the story to keep you a little engaged on that front. When the PlayStation arrived, however, relationships would be taken to depths we've never seen before. From this era, to most fans of the genre, the most notable relationships would probably come through Final Fantasy VII, VIII, and IX. Final Fantasy VII gave us a really interesting love triangle between Cloud, Aerith, and Tifa that fans are still talking about to this day. I mean, the recent remake probably does play a factor with that, but even still, there are reasons to believe Cloud's true feelings lie with either Aerith or Tifa that often still find its way into debates between hardcore fans. Granted, his options do become limited later on, I guess, so it's not like he has much of a choice, but regardless, arguments could be made whether Tifa was his true love all along, or for lack of better terms, he just had to settle for his plan B due to unforeseen circumstances. And yeah, I don't really feel bad about spoiling Final Fantasy VII. You've had like 25 years. I feel like the whole Aerith thing is common knowledge at this point. Anyway, while Final Fantasy VII already did have a pretty big focus on romance, for Final Fantasy VIII, it would basically become the main theme of the game. This is clearly shown when looking at the logo, which happens to be the two main characters, Squall and Rinoa, enjoying each other's soft embrace. Now, the execution of this relationship may be hit or miss, depending on who you ask, but regardless, it seemed to resonate with enough fans for romance to continue to have a strong place in the series. The next entry, Final Fantasy IX, would only continue this trend. The relationship between Zidane and Garnet, otherwise known as Dagger, is probably my favorite in the whole series, and really one of my favorites in JRPGs in general. There are definitely some cheesy moments though with that said, like the whole ooh soft scene instantly coming to mind, but in defense of that and Zidane's sort of player-like nature as a whole, I will say it was a nice refreshing change of pace to actually have a protagonist who would at least attempt to make some moves instead of acting completely oblivious when girls throw them all types of signals from every direction. He does also mature a lot throughout the game and really grow from those immature qualities. To be completely honest, the ending of Final Fantasy IX is easily one of my favorite endings in video games ever, largely in part due to the romance depicted between Zidane and Garnet. I'm not afraid to admit that I shed some manly tears there, which was probably the first time I ever did so with a video game. Final Fantasy IX in general, and the romance between its two main characters will always stand out to me for that reason. Final Fantasy aside, there were certainly a lot of other great JRPG romances on the PlayStation. In my opinion, the love story between Justin and Fina in the first Grandia is one of the more memorable ones out there. Throughout this coming-of-age journey, Justin grows a lot from the rash, immature kid that he once was, and Fina learns to accept that there's no shame in knowing that you can't do everything by yourself. Their personalities really complement each other nicely, with this being put on display during some heartwarming moments. Plus, what other JRPG can say that the two main characters actually get married at the end of the game and even have kids? Probably not many. Another favorite of mine from that era is the relationship between Faye and Ellie in Xenogears. Xenogears in general is easily one of the more mature JRPGs on the PlayStation, so unsurprisingly, the romance between its two main characters also follows that suit. This is demonstrated by a scene real late in the game where they, well, you know, which was pretty rare for JRPGs at the time and really just video games in general. To my knowledge, this was the first JRPG to be released in the West where the implications of a sex scene were made so explicitly clear. Now, I do fall in the camp that believes Cloud and Tifa did do it near the end of Final Fantasy VII, but I also know there's a sizable portion out there who don't think this is the case as it was never directly stated. With Xenogears though, you gotta be pretty dense not to read the writing on the wall here. Anyway, physical stuff aside, the relationship really has a lot of touching emotional moments and they do a lot of growing together. They're definitely another one of my favorite JRPG couples. An underrated couple though I feel comes from Wild Arms 2 with Ashley and Marina. This one in particular really stands out to me as it's different from any other one in this video, considering Marina doesn't actually join your party as a playable character. Early in the game, it's made clear that the two of them are dating, but you really only catch glimpses of their relationship when Ashley goes back to visit her in between missions. In a way, it's actually a more realistic depiction of a relationship compared to many others, as most couples don't usually work together, so given that Marina is a baker while Ashley is a member of an anti-terrorist armed resistance force, it's only natural that they wouldn't see each other a whole lot.
Babe! No, babe!
It's definitely a good example of a successful long-distance relationship. It also takes pages from both Grandia's and Xenogears books, with them even having kids at the end that was the direct cause of a scene with heavy implications earlier in the game. Another really memorable romance from this console generation came from Lunar's Silver Star story with Alex and Luna. Well, to be technical, Silver Star Story did release on the previous console generation, however it came out for the Sega CD, which, needless to say, was not a very popular system in the West, so I, alongside many others, didn't get to experience this game for the first time until they remade it for the PlayStation. Given the dates of its original release though, Alex and Luna may have been the first notable JRPG couple that a lot of people got to see in the West. It made a lasting impression on many, I'm sure, and seeing the lengths that Alex would go to later in the game to save and protect her was really inspiring. The second Lunar game, Eternal Blue, also featured a pretty strong romance between its two main characters, Hiro and Lucia, but in my opinion was maybe a slight notch below from the romance in the first game. I will say though, it was pretty cool that even after beating the main game, there's a lengthy epilogue with tons of more playable content that's only purpose is to reunite the two lovebirds together. In doing so, you unlock the true ending, which is pretty sweet. As you can see, romances in JRPGs really started to thrive in this 32-bit, 64-bit generation, and this trend would only continue into the one following it. Final Fantasy X would bring us Titus and Yuna and show us an emotional romance in ways that we had never seen before. The new graphical power of the PS2 gave Squaresoft the ability to design some truly breathtaking scenes centered around this. Romantic connotations aside, the scene from Macalania Woods is easily one of the most visually stunning and atmospherically impressive scenes in the entire Final Fantasy series. I don't even know if atmospherically is a word, but I'm using it anyway. The aesthetic here really is something else though, and does a great job at helping you feel the passion in this scene. Besides Titus and Yuna, this console generation also provided some other pretty great JRPG couples. Some of my favorites include Ryudo and Elena from Grandia 2, Lloyd and Colette from Tales of Symphonia, and Luke and Cere from Tales of the Abyss. In my opinion though, the strongest romance of around that time would come through the smaller screen of the PSP with Trails in the Sky. The relationship between Joshua and Estelle spans over 2 games, which really helps all the touching, emotional moments hit that much harder later on, as you can fully appreciate all the build up that went into it. That one is best not spoiled, so I'll end it there. And actually, I may just sorta wrap up the video there as well. As console generations moved forward, romances and JRPGs did so as well, and it's pretty much a staple in every one at this point. It would take me literally hours to talk about all of them. And to be completely honest, I don't really have the same nostalgia for them, so it wouldn't be as fun anyway. One thing for certain though is that romances and JRPGs have definitely come a long way over the years and are way more relatable and fleshed out than they've ever been before. For the most part, that is, as clearly this video shows, there's been some absolutely iconic JRPG couples in the past. Regardless, you can bet that there will be more in the future that will continue to really resonate with fans. And with technology rapidly improving by the year, they'll be able to capture it in ways better than ever. I can only wonder who the next couple will be that will make me shed some more of these manly tears. If any, that is. Only Father Time can answer that question for me, I guess, so until then, we wait. Alright, thanks for watching our video everyone. If you enjoyed it, it would mean a lot if you could either like it or subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We put out random JRPG videos like this all the time. Also, let us know with the comment below who some of your favorite JRPG couples are and what games you feel best handled romance. I'm always interested in hearing others' opinions and engaging in conversation about it. If you really want to go above and beyond and take your support of our channel to the next level, you can support us on Patreon at the links below. Regardless, we're happy just to have you here watching though. Other than that, happy Valentine's Day everyone. This is Gaming Productions. Until next time.